If you would change your life, you must begin where all change begins, in imagination. Everything you now call reality was once only assumed to be so. And the most powerful way to transform your world is to act as if everything always works out for you. Do not mistake this for wishful thinking, for it is far greater than idle fantasy. To assume is to claim, to embody, to feel in your very bones that the thing you desire is already yours, and that life is always conspiring in your favor. This is the law of assumption, and it governs all that you see. Think for a moment about the way you approach your days. If you rise each morning bracing yourself for difficulty, then difficulty is precisely what greets you. If you prepare your mind for disappointment, you will find it waiting on the path. Yet, if you awaken with the inner assurance that life bends toward your good, that even apparent obstacles will unfold into blessings, you begin to reprogram the unseen forces of your world. You act as if you are favored, and so you are. Most people look at life and say, "I will believe it when I see it." But this is not how creation works. Belief does not follow sight. Sight follows belief. The law of assumption declares that what you assume to be true becomes your lived reality. If you assume that everything works out for you, then every event, every encounter, every circumstance begins to arrange itself in harmony with that state of being. You are no longer the one chasing results. You are the one magnetizing them by your inner conviction. Consider how a child plays. They do not ask if the castle of sand will stand. They do not worry about how the game will end. They live in the fullness of the assumption that it is all unfolding just as they desire. It is only as adults that we begin to question, to doubt, to expect disappointment. But what if you return to that childlike faith? What if you carried within yourself the assurance that every scene in the play of your life is moving toward your good? When you begin to act as if everything always works out for you, you are no longer swayed by temporary appearances. The bills may still sit on the desk, the relationship may still seem unresolved, the path may still look uncertain, but within, you rest in the assumption that the solution is inevitable. The answer is secured, the way is already made. And because consciousness is the only reality, this inner assumption hardens into fact. I tell you, it is not arrogance to assume life favors you. It is not a delusion to walk as though all things conspire for your success. It is simply law. Just as the seed assumes the form of the tree and does not question its unfolding, so too will your assumption bring forth its likeness. You must become bold enough to claim it within, and gentle enough to rest in its certainty. There is a great difference between hoping that something will work out and assuming that it already has. Hope keeps the desire distant, always tomorrow, always later. Assumption draws it into the present moment, clothing you in the feeling of fulfillment now. And when you feel that it is already so, life must mirror that state back to you. This is why I tell you to act as if everything always works out for you. Not some of the time, not when circumstances appear favorable, but always. Because assumption, when held consistently, bends all facts toward its fulfillment. You may ask, how do I assume? It begins not with effort, but with imagination. Tonight, when you close your eyes, let yourself drift into the scene that would be true if everything had already worked out in your favor. Do not concern yourself with the mechanics, the how, the steps. Instead, see only the finished scene. Hear the words spoken to you in congratulations. Feel the relief that courses through your being. Know the satisfaction of a story resolved. And when you rise tomorrow, carry that feeling with you, as though it were already the foundation of your life. Walk into your day as one who expects only good, one who knows that even apparent setbacks are but stepping stones toward the inevitable outcome. There is no power outside of you arranging events at random. Life is not a game of chance. The power is within you, and it responds faithfully to your assumptions. If you assume struggle, you create more struggle. If you assume failure, you call failure to your door. But if you assume that everything always works out for you, then failure becomes impossible. What seems like delay becomes divine timing. What looks like loss becomes hidden gain, and every twist of the path straightens into perfect alignment. I ask you to test this, not merely to listen. For the law of assumption is practical, not theoretical. Begin this very day to carry yourself as one who is certain of life's favor. Notice how your shoulders relax when you know all is well. Notice how your speech softens, how your mind grows calm, how your heart is light when you no longer doubt the outcome. And observe how swiftly the outer world rearranges itself to reflect that inner state. To act as if everything always works out for you is not to deny reality. It is to create reality. It is to say, I know the end of the story, and it is good. It is to live from the end rather than toward it. And the more faithfully you persist in this assumption, the more natural it becomes until it no longer feels like an effort, but like truth itself. And in that moment, you will see that the world has always been your servant, answering only to the state you dared to occupy. To live in the end is to dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, to clothe yourself in the state of the answered prayer before it appears in the world of sense. This is the great secret, the key that unlocks the treasures of the law of assumption. For most of us have been trained to live in the middle, to dwell in the question, to concern ourselves endlessly with the steps in between. But life is not transformed in the middle. It is transformed at the end. When you live as though it is already done, then it is done. The outer world must bow to the inner certainty. Think of the playwright who has already written the final act of his play. The characters may still be speaking their lines, the scenes may still be unfolding, but the outcome has already been secured. No matter what twists appear along the way, the author knows where the story concludes. So it is with you. You are the author of your life, and the conclusion is written in the assumption you dare to hold. If you choose the end, if you inhabit it fully in imagination, then all of life conspires to bring that end into manifestation. The great error of man is to wait for the evidence of the senses before he believes. He waits for the world to confirm what he longs for, but the world is only a mirror of what he has assumed within. Living in the end means withdrawing your attention from appearances, refusing to be swayed by temporary facts, and resting instead in the invisible reality of your fulfilled desire. This is not pretending. It is not a game of make-believe. It is creation itself. You are called to be faithful to the unseen, for the unseen is the seed of all that you will one day touch and know. When you live in the end, you no longer ask, when will it happen? How will it come? Who will bring it to me? For those questions belong to the realm of doubt. Instead, you dwell in the knowing that it already is. You speak as though it has been done. You think from the place of completion, not toward it. You rest in the state of already having, already being, already possessing the thing desired. And in that state, you feel the relief, the gratitude, the confidence that accompanies fulfillment. Consider for a moment the difference between longing and fulfillment. Longing carries with it a tension, a restlessness, a sense of absence. But fulfillment brings calm, it brings ease. It allows you to exhale and release. That is the atmosphere of the end. And when you make that feeling your dwelling place, you invite the world to reflect it back to you. The promotion, the reconciliation, the healing, the wealth, the opportunity, all of it flows naturally to the one who has already lived the end within. Many people resist this teaching because they say, I cannot deceive myself. How can I pretend to have what I do not yet see? But hear me well, you are always imagining. You are always assuming. Even when you say, I do not yet have, you are living in an assumption. And that assumption is precisely why you continue not to have. To live in the end is simply to shift your imagination from lack to fulfillment, from absence to presence, from longing to completion. It is not deception, it is discipline. It is the deliberate use of the power you have been unconsciously using all along. When you live in the end, you are not denying the world, you are transcending it. You are no longer governed by the shadows of yesterday's assumptions. You rise above appearances and stand in the realm of creation, where the end is already written and the outcome already secured. And as you persist there, the outer world, obedient to the law, reshapes itself to match the state you occupy. I urge you to practice this tonight. Whatever it is you desire, do not picture the process of attaining it. Picture only the end. If you desire health, do not imagine the hospital, the medicine, the healing process. Imagine only the moment after, when you are vibrant, strong, and whole. If you desire reconciliation, do not imagine the arguments, the explanations, the apologies. Imagine only the embrace, the laughter, the joy of reunion. If you desire wealth, do not imagine the work, the effort, the means. Imagine only the satisfaction of already possessing, already spending, already enjoying the fruits of abundance. That is living in the end. And when you carry that end with you into the waking hours, your behavior subtly shifts. You speak differently, you walk differently, you think differently, because you are no longer seeking, you are being. The man who lives to the end of success does not worry about failure. The woman who lives in the end of love does not fear abandonment. The one who lives in the end of abundance does not feel scarcity. Their world is already resolved, and that resolution colors every thought, word, and deed. It is persistence in this state that works the miracle. For one night you may dwell in the end and feel its sweetness, and the next morning you may be tempted to doubt. But if you return again and again to that inner state, if you refuse to let go of the feeling of fulfillment, then the law must fulfill it in the outer world. As the seed faithfully produces after its kind, so does the assumption faithfully harden into fact. Do not be concerned if the facts seem stubborn at first. Facts are only the echoes of former states, the shadows of past assumptions. Persist in the end, and the shadows will yield to the light. Do not waver between desire and doubt, between hope and fear. Choose the end and remain there. For as surely as night follows day, the world will confirm your assumption. Sis, to understand manifestation, you must learn to separate yourself from the tyranny of appearances. The senses are forever whispering, forever showing you shadows of what has already been assumed in the past. But if you wish to create deliberately, if you wish to walk in the assurance that everything works out for you, you must practice the art of detachment from circumstances. Detachment does not mean ignoring the world or denying what your eyes behold. It means refusing to let appearances dictate your inner state. You remain unmoved, fixed in the knowing that the invisible assumption is greater than the visible fact. The outer world is nothing more than crystallized imagination, hardened states of consciousness from days gone by. What you see around you is the echo of former beliefs, the residue of past assumptions. To live by appearances is to live in bondage to yesterday's thinking. To detach from circumstances is to free yourself from that bondage and to claim your authority as the creator of tomorrow. When you look at a bill, you may see lack staring at you. Yet if within you carry the assumption that everything always works out for you, then that bill is already settled. When you look at a relationship in conflict, you may see discord. Yet if within you dwell in the assumption of harmony, then reconciliation is already unfolding. You are not enslaved by what is, for you know what is only what was. Most people live their lives chained to appearances. They see a closed door and call it final. They see a delay and call it defeat. They see a problem and call it permanent. But the awakened one knows that appearances are temporary, fleeting, unstable. They are shadows, and shadows hold no power except the meaning we grant them. When you detach from circumstances, you take back that power. You refuse to let the shadow write the script of your life. You let the inner assumption be the author instead. Ask yourself this: how many times have you looked upon a situation and thought it hopeless, only to watch it resolve in ways you could not have imagined? How many times have you worried, feared, agonized, only to realize later that the outcome was never as dire as you believed? That which seemed so final proved to be nothing more than smoke and mist. This is the proof that appearances cannot be trusted, and yet we allow them to rule our moods, our actions, our expectations. The one who learns detachment lives above this. They know the play is not over until the end is written, and the end is written in imagination. Detachment is not indifference. It is not passive. It is quiet mastery. It is to see the storm but remain calm within, knowing the storm must pass. It is to look at the mountain and remain unshaken, knowing the mountain must move. It is to witness the lack and remain grateful, knowing abundance is already yours in the unseen. When you detach, you no longer beg circumstances for permission to believe. You no longer wait for the evidence of the senses to justify your faith. You hold to your assumption with a quiet confidence, and in time, the world rearranges itself to reflect your inner state. There is a secret ease that comes with detachment. You stop fighting appearances, and in doing so, you conserve your energy. Instead of wrestling with shadows, you plant seeds in imagination. Instead of resisting the facts, you rest in the truth of your assumption. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. Where others see problems, you see temporary scenes. Where others see finality, you see transition. Where others panic, you remain composed. This composure itself is the mark of one who lives by law and not by chance. Detach from the temptation to measure your progress by outer signs. The sprout does not appear the same day the seed is planted. Yet no farmer digs up the soil each morning to see if the seed has grown. He trusts the unseen process. So it is with your assumptions. When you assume that everything works out for you, life immediately begins to move in that direction, though the first evidence may not yet be visible. Detachment means you do not waver in those moments. You do not dig up the seed with doubt. You rest, you trust, you know that what is unseen will soon be seen. It is the habit of the senses to clamor for attention. This is real! This is real! This is final! But you must silence that noise with inner vision. You must answer, no, this is passing. This is only a shadow. The truth is within me, and I choose to live from that truth. The moment you do this, you step into dominion. You cease to be a victim of appearances, and you become the master of them. For circumstances are obedient, they must follow the inner assumption. They may lag, they may resist for a time, but they cannot withstand the persistence of a mind anchored in its chosen state. Detachment also means releasing the obsession with how your desire will come. The mind loves to map the path, to calculate every step, to demand control over the unfolding. But that is not your task. Your task is to hold the end, to dwell in the assumption, to live as if the desire is already fulfilled. The means, the how, the way, these are the domain of life itself. When you detach from the demand to know the process, you free yourself to rest in the assurance of the outcome. And in that rest, the way is revealed, often in ways you could never have predicted. Remember this: the world of sense is slow to catch up to the world of imagination. There is a natural interval between assumption and manifestation, just as there is between sowing and harvest. Detachment is what carries you through that interval. It is the anchor that keeps you steady when appearances contradict your desire. Without detachment, you are tossed about by every wave of circumstance. With detachment, you are unmoved, resting in the assurance that everything always works out for you. There is a feeling that marks the difference between hoping for a desire and living in the reality of it fulfilled. It is the feeling of relief, the quiet certainty that comes when you know the outcome is already secured. To act as if everything always works out for you is to walk in this feeling, to carry it with you into every circumstance and every hour of your day. This feeling is not forced, it is not strained, it is natural, like the exhale after holding your breath, like the calm after the storm, like the smile that comes when the burden is lifted. Think of a time when you worried endlessly about something, only to find later that it resolved itself in your favor. Recall how your body felt when the answer came, when the problem was no longer a problem. The shoulders relaxed, the tension melted, the mind grew quiet. That is the very state you are called to assume now, not after the resolution, but before it appears in the world of sense. For by assuming the feeling of relief, you call the resolution into being. The world simply mirrors back to you the state in which you dwell. The mind will tell you, I will feel relief when I see it, I will feel certainty when it happens. But the law of assumption says otherwise. You feel it first, and then it comes. You plant the seed of relief in imagination, and life brings forth the harvest. When you walk in certainty, you no longer need proof, for the proof is within. And because it is within, it must one day appear without. What does certainty feel like? It feels like gratitude without effort. It feels like rest without exhaustion. It feels like standing on solid ground after wandering in shifting sand. It is the state of knowing without questioning, of receiving without striving. You do not pace the floor in anxiety when you are certain. You do not grasp, you do not cling, you do not beg, you rest. You trust, you allow it. And in that allowing, the unseen moves swiftly into the seen. This is why I tell you, cultivate the feeling of relief before the world gives you reason. Close your eyes and imagine the scene that would follow the fulfillment of your desire. Hear the voice that congratulates you. Feel the touch of the hand that embraces you. Sense the joy in your heart that comes when the thing is accomplished. And then let that joy spill over into the present moment. Do not wait for tomorrow's evidence. Make it real now by feeling it now. For what you feel within must become fact without. Relief is the surest sign that you have assumed the end. When you know it is done, you stop searching. When you know it is yours, you stop striving. Imagine a person who has received the news they were waiting for. The job is theirs. The healing is complete. The answer is given. They do not go on asking. They do not continue seeking. They walk in the freedom of fulfillment. That same feeling is available to you at this very moment, for it is not tied to circumstance, it is born of assumption. Carry this feeling into every situation, and watch how the world bends to meet it. Where others see obstacles, you see opportunities. Where others feel fear, you feel calm. Where others expect the worst, you know only the best can come. This inner knowing radiates outward, and life cannot help but reflect it. People respond differently to you, doors open more easily. Solutions appear effortlessly. For the one who is certain is magnetic, and the one who is at ease is powerful. Do not confuse relief with apathy. To feel relief is not to abandon desire. It is to claim its fulfillment. To feel certainty is not to stop moving. It is to move from a place of knowing. Your actions may still be required, but they flow with ease, not strain. They come as inspired steps, not desperate grasps. You are no longer chasing outcomes. You are walking in the state of one who already has them. And in this state, life becomes lighter, smoother, freer. Some will say, but I cannot feel relief until the problem is gone. Yet the problem is only an appearance, and appearances shift according to your state. If you will quiet yourself and imagine the end, even for a few moments, you will feel the sweetness of relief. And once felt, you can return to it again and again until it becomes your natural dwelling place. It may begin as a flicker, a fleeting glimpse, but with practice it becomes steady, like a flame that grows brighter with each breath. The feeling of certainty is the compass by which you know you are aligned. If you still feel restless, anxious, doubtful, then you have not yet fully entered the end. But if you feel calm, assured, grateful without cause, then you are there. And once you are there, the law must bring it to pass. For assumption, when persisted in, becomes fact. So I ask you now, what would it feel like if everything truly always worked out for you? What would it feel like to know that no matter the appearance, no matter the delay, no matter the obstacle, the end is always good? Let that feeling rise within you. Let it wash over the doubts, the fears, the questions. Let it settle into your body, your breath, your mind, and let it guide you as you move through your day. For in that feeling lies the secret of creation, the assurance of fulfillment, the power to turn imagination into reality. See, you have now seen the pattern clearly laid before you. The law is simple, yet its simplicity is its power. Assume that everything always works out for you. Live in the end of your desire, detach yourself from appearances, and clothe yourself in the feeling of relief and certainty. This is not philosophy to be admired from afar. It is practice to be lived daily. Do not wait for the world to change. Change your assumption and the world must follow. Walk as though life bends in your favor, and you will discover that it does. Rest in the unseen, and the scene will transform. Carry yourself as one for whom the story always concludes in victory, and watch how swiftly the stage of life arranges itself to confirm your role. For imagination creates reality, and when you dare to act as if everything always works out for you, you awaken to the truth that it always has